I am on the Craving Consciousness podcast with Alicia DeCruz. And I had been looking for someone to come and speak to y'all about conscious uncoupling. That's like actually a term out there. And I came across like a blog post of yours, Alicia, and I absolutely knew Spirit sent me the sign to have you on the podcast. So I'm so grateful that you agreed.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here as well. So thank you.
Yeah. So Alicia is doing all of her inner work because she's getting ready to be one of them spiritual leaders. She's already a spiritual leader, right? By doing the inner work. But when I came across her post, she was talking about how she consciously ended a relationship and the transformation that happened in that process. And so I'm so excited to ask you how, because in your article, you talked about that you manifested this person, that you called this person's energy. And can you tell us about like the beginning?
Yeah, sure. So before I met my partner, I'd been single for 10 years. And that was my choice because I wanted to do the work because the relationships I had attracted in my past were toxic. So I knew that I had to do some work on myself. And I knew exactly what I wanted and exactly what I wanted to call in. And seriously, within 2 weeks, he literally appeared and I just knew it was him. So yeah, it was really amazing how this stuff works when you're in tune and you really know what you want. Like the universe gives you exactly that. But what I learned is that you really need to be specific. He literally gave me everything I wanted. And the one thing that I hadn't experienced before is what I actually got. So you have to be really specific. It's just like if you ask for a phone, a mobile phone, the universe will give you a phone, but what kind of phone? You might get a Nokia when you want an iPhone. So yeah, it's about being really specific. So I knew that he was the one when we just looked into each other's eyes, really. Yeah, so 4 years later, I mean, there was obviously lots of ups and downs as all relationships have. And it was a beautiful relationship, and I've learned so much from it. But yeah, I realized also that not all relationships have to be forever. And I think that's what I thought. It's like I was sort of living in fairy tale land, like watching all these fairy tales growing up that, you live happily ever after, or that's the goal, to be with someone for 20 plus years, but I feel like all this, it's all outdated beliefs and is not necessarily true. And it doesn't mean that you're a failure or that you failed in a relationship just because it ends.
Amen to that. I'm so glad you brought that up. I actually wrote that down here because I wanted to talk to you about, I wanted to ask you about your concept on, do relationships really end, right? Versus how the dynamic had changed.
Yeah.
So part in my brain, because I read your article, I was like, oh my God, you could take this so deep, right? Because I told you my husband died, right? And so everybody's like, did that relationship really end? And then when I'm reading your article, I'm like, did it really end, or did the dynamic change, right? Even though he's physically not here, you could apply this to physical relationships that are still here versus people that pass away. Did the relationship really end? Like, look at all the lessons I learned through and we did have 20 plus years together. You know what I mean? But it didn't end. So I mean, I really love that you said that. And I think for my listeners, like, really get that aha moment that we're not fitting in this box of the fairy tales, right?
That's right. And I guess, you always have that energetic cord still there, that invisible cord, So, and I think a lot of us, we're just used to, with any ending, it's like, oh, we'll just cut them out of our lives. But, you still have all those memories there, and, you still have all that story that you're replaying in your head. Like, you still have that there. And if you don't deal with that, then that can become toxic for you as well. And what I realized in by doing it this way, it also gives the other person closure.
Yeah.
As well, like for them to be able to, speak their truth and say whatever they need to say. But also, especially if the person may have an abandonment wound and you're just cutting that person out of your life completely, that's only going to trigger that wound even more. So I think it's very healing for both parties.
Yeah. So what would you say was the first, I guess, step that you took consciously where you were like, okay.
Yeah, well, I think realizing, like looking back at my upbringing, going back to my parents, like looking at everyone around me, everyone's relationships, and thinking, I don't want to be that person. So it was consciously deciding that I don't want to hold that hate and resentment and that rage. And you see so many people, they want revenge or they're just so angry. And I've actually seen firsthand how it can turn into illnesses and diseases. And I just knew that I didn't want that for my life. So I was like, okay, how do I get past this and what can I do? And I know something that's really empowering is the first step is taking responsibility. So instead of blaming, because I feel like blaming is such a toxic emotion for your body. And I know I don't want to get sick. I don't want it to develop into any illness. So I've done it for myself and for my own healing. And instead of playing the blame game and being in the victim mode, I wanted to be more empowered by taking personal responsibility and looking at myself.
Boy, what a conscious woman you are. I know there's so many people that can't, that just too much they're learning, right? They can't grasp that concept. So many people in relationships, like, because I was just talking about this, that the spiritual awakening, when people come into my community, we ask them questions, and almost every single one of them are talking about their relationships, right? They're like, I want a better relationship. I'm in a toxic relationship, or I'm having my spiritual awakening. And how do I navigate my relationship? So for you to come on here, I just get super giddy, right? Because you're saying, I took responsibility. Like I am a reflection. Everything's a reflection in a relationship. So if we think that other person is doing something wrong, we got to stop in our tracks right there. Right.
Yeah. And I think that's what I try to do. It's like, relationships, they're always going to trigger you because it's like the other person is holding up the mirror to you. And a lot of the times we don't want to see that because it's scary. We don't want to face like our shadows and what's potentially wrong with us, So it actually is easier to blame.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, yeah. Yeah, because you really are taking conscious responsibility, and we could like spread this across, anything with people with the money mindset issues or any sort of problem in their life, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, the blame game versus responsibility. Oh, I wanted to add too, and then have a question. So at what point do you realize, okay, it is time for me to do something, right? So let me share this little bit of story with you.
Mm-hmm.
Years ago, probably, I don't know, 6 years ago, I was tired. My husband was not having a joyful life. He just didn't have any drive, any oomph, anything, right? And I'm like, I was angry, going, what's wrong with him? And it's affecting my life because I'm like, well, we're co-creating. And then I heard spirit, and they said, stop looking at him. They said, stop. If you want your life to be a different way, then you need to take the steps and the thought process to do that. But it's not his fault. And so as soon as I felt that, I was like, oh my God. And so I changed, and then our relationship changed too. Right. But what would you say to the listeners? I mean, is there even a point where you're come and you go, okay, I've been doing the work and this still doesn't feel good, so it's time to uncouple consciously?
Yeah. Well, what you said actually resonates with me and sort of, what transpired in my relationship. But I think, that gets to a stage where it's like, you have to ask yourself, is this beneficial for me? Is this healthy for me? And I guess I got to a stage where I knew this wasn't healthy for either of us. And I felt by leaving, it would actually set both of us free and we would be able to flourish by ourselves. So yeah, I just knew I was feeling a lot of negative emotions inside me, and I just knew that I didn't want to feel this anymore. And I also didn't want to hold on to it after we had ended.
You had also said something too, and maybe that was part of your process in there, where you were saying that, you know, helping him heal wasn't part of your, supposed to be part of your process, and staying in that relationship was only hindering his growth and your growth.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, as empathic women, we tend to focus on the other person. We always want to serve and help. And I knew, I could see what I was doing. I was trying to save him and really help him, because I thought, well, I've done a lot of work on myself. I'll be okay. But I feel like I just need to help him more, or, you know, and I realized that it was actually only hurting me, and it was stunting his growth, because I think we all have to take responsibility for our own lives. And that's maybe when the breakthrough would happen. And I thought, well, maybe I am stopping that breakthrough from him by trying to, like, that's not my journey. Do you know what I mean? I was trying to sort of maybe change his path and show him a different way. And maybe that's not the way for him.
Right. Oh, that's a good one. Right. Because we all learn our own process, and then we're like, hey, everybody, look at my process. And then we're like, oh, it doesn't work for that person, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's just, so what works for me might not work for somebody else. So, and that's at the point when I realized, you know what, I need to stop focusing on trying to save him. I actually need to save myself.
Yeah, essentially same message, right? Stop looking at him. That's what Spirit told me. Stop it.
And I guess what I would, oh, sorry.
No, what I was gonna say is, I know I have a lot of listeners that are like, but it would hinder him if I left, or like the empathness, right? They sacrifice themselves so much, and then they think to themselves they're doing something wrong by departing a relationship, right? This is big for us spiritual folks, whether they're empath or not, right? Your heart sensitive, light, you know, light workers.
And I totally get that. And that's why I feel like I actually did stay for too long, because I was more worried about his like mental health over myself, because and that's why I found it so hard to leave, because of that. I was like, what if something happens if I leave, and what if he does something to himself? What, all these negative things are going through my head. But then I thought, if I keep thinking that, I'm never going to leave, and the situation is not going to get any better. It's going to stay the same. We're both going to be miserable and unhappy. I just had to trust, like, I know that he's a good person. So I just had to trust that the universe, God, whoever, was going to take care of him and take care of me. So sometimes it is hard to sort of let go. But yeah, I had to do that, and just really, really, really trust that everything was going to be okay, and that he would be okay. And
I think a lot of it too comes from the ego mind, or like you were saying at the beginning about the happily ever after. So they get in their head, they start judging themselves and have that authoritative voice coming in, or maybe their parents stayed together forever, or, you know, so they're thinking it has to look a certain way. And it is very difficult to step out of that box of society put for us, our ancestors or whatever.
Yeah.
So important. That is part of why we came here. You know what I mean?
100%. And I guess for me as well, I had just, he had just met my family, like, not, I don't know, probably a year before we ended it. And he got everyone's approval, everyone's blessings. They all loved him. And that's probably been the first partner of mine that everyone has given me their thumbs up. Right. So I had this idea in my head, and this, I guess, fantasy that I was going to have children with him and we were going to get married. So that's what made it harder. And especially with my age, I'm 41 now. So it's like, well, do I leave this relationship when I know I really want kids? Like we both wanted kids. Or do I start over? And then, you know, so it was like, what do I do? So I struggled with it for a long time. And I just had to keep like listening to my intuition and the signs that that was giving me. And that's what helped me along the way.
It really is like our ego mind is always trying to control everything or make it logical or linear.
Yeah.
But when you just keep coming back to spirit, keep coming back to that intuition and the little whispers, and you know it, right? It's like your ego mind's just trying to hide that. You know what I mean? Trying to hide the red flag or trying to hide how you really feel, you know?
Or we ignore it. We don't want to actually see it because it's too painful, because it's not really what we want.
Yeah, it's attached to change. All change is scary, because then if we do our intuition, then our ego mind's like, what about the money? Where am I going to live? Blah, 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 you know?
Yeah, and then the fear sets in. And we don't want to feel that. So yeah, and then, you know, it depends on your mindset as well. Like if you have that scarcity mindset, like, oh, this is everything I'm going to lose if, you know, if I end the relationship. But that's scarcity mindset. So it's more about looking for, well, what are you going to gain?
Yeah.
So it depends on how, it really depends on how you look at it. I mean, you could see a breakup as, oh my God, this is the end and this is tragic and it's such a loss. Or you could see it as a beautiful learning experience, and how much you've grown and how much you've gained. And
yeah. So, and that's the same thing like with death, right? With my husband. I wouldn't be who I am today if he was still here. I wouldn't have figured it out. I would have just kept going through the normal motions of our day. You know what I mean? And so now it's been 5 months. And so I'm looking back and going, look at all the lessons I've learned in the relationship, but also in the 5 months, like having to like rely on me, you know, and my feelings, and having them just for me, not somebody else. Saying, well, are you sure you feel this way? Maybe you feel that way. And then going, well, maybe, you know, so it's like, no, how do I really feel? You know?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, 5 months, that's like not that long. So yeah, well done.
Trust me, it's not linear. So I mean, we can hang up and I can cry about it or something, you know. But I think because as a conscious woman, right? So as soon as he passed away, I'm like, conscious woman, where are you? Like, I like spirit. I'm like, I know I'm here conscious. So I'm just waiting for the message to come through versus, you know, bless a lot of people that haven't done some of the work and they get stuck in that grief and they don't move, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And I think you said something similar about that when you talked about, you saw your relationships manifest as me, quote unquote, as me. So, like you were talking about the language around relationships too. I'd love for you to share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I think, with, you know, relationships, people tend to say, oh my God, you've broken my heart, or I'm heartbroken. It's just something that we've said, that society says, and we've clung on to, and we still say it. And I noticed I was saying that too. And then when I actually thought about it, I was like, well, why do we say that? Is my heart literally broken? If it was broken, I wouldn't be here telling the story. So it's not actually true. And I think that when you say that, it's so negative, like that negative energy is, you know, just goes through you. But if you actually are honest with yourself, your heart wasn't broken. I feel like the expectations were. So for me, I had, you know, certain expectations that he was going to be the father of my children and my husband. So it wasn't that my heart broke, but my expectations were broken.
Yeah. And I mean, when we talk about the language too, because I love to talk about relationships too, just because I had such a good one. And so when we start using certain words in our relationship, it navigates that relationship, right? Energetically. So if one person's always apologetic, it just like starts giving their energy away. And then the dynamics of the relationship slowly change. So it's so important to watch the words that come out of your mouth,
Yes.
before the relationship, during the relationship, and like you said, after the relationship, because they can simply just tell themselves that they're a victim and believe that, versus, like you said, really like asking yourself questions.
Mm, definitely. And I feel like it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy as well. And, we all do it, not even in relationships, but just in everyday life. Like, we might, I don't know, get something wrong. And it's like, oh, I'm so stupid, and we don't realize, but we've just called ourselves stupid. So is that, we don't want to believe that thing. So I know I still practice it every day. And when I say something negative about myself, I catch it and I change it into something more empowering and positive, because I don't want that in my energy field. And it's
Yeah.
not what I want to give out. So
Yeah. And a lot of times we say things unconsciously. It's just like the old learned behavior. But I love that you're catching it, going, no, I don't believe that,
yeah.
I'm really
And I
changing
pick
it.
up, it's
Go ahead.
now pick it up when other people say it, when the words that they say.
Yeah. It's easier to see them,
It is actually.
I'll be like, what did you just say? Oh my heck, you're dialing up a spell right there,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's wild, the language. And like, as an intuitive woman, that's how, like, when I used to do readings, right? I used to do readings. So I would just be like, ask me a question. The way they form their question already tells you what the answer is. You know what I mean? It's almost like you're reading their law of attraction, like what they're putting out is what's going to come back, or the direction that they're headed by the words that they're using.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Deep stuff, right?
Yeah, I see another question in there and I forgot what it was. Sorry.
Oh, I don't know. Oh, how you said relationships manifest as me.
Yeah, that's it. So, I mean, from my own experience in my past, so not this relationship, but my past experiences, I didn't love myself. I literally hated my guts, hated me. So all the relationships I was attracting was mirroring that, would attract people that wouldn't really love me, that were emotionally unavailable, because how could they love me when I wasn't loving myself? So I was attracting just that. And what I was saying in my post, it's like, if somebody has abandonment issues, then they'll attract somebody who's, going to abandon them unless they work on that. So it's really important to actually look at yourself to see who you're being in that relationship, because so you're not attracting that to yourself.
Yeah, who you're being in your relationship to yourself. Damn, I mean, that is everything, right? But when it comes to a relationship, that's the thing that's going to be closest to you, a partnership.
Yeah. And what I've also realized is that with like past partners that I've had, they also didn't love themselves.
Right.
So how did they know how to love me? When I was the same, I thought I knew what love was, but I didn't, how could I, when I wasn't even loving myself? I was expecting somebody else to give that to me and meet my needs.
Yeah.
But what I learned now is that, and that's how I think that we get hurt. It's like, you expect your partner to meet all your needs and do all these things for you. And then when it ends, it's like, that's when you suffer and that's when you struggle, because your needs aren't being met because you're not meeting them
yourself. So I'll just share, like, because I'm going through this healing process too. So I'm just in my head. But same scenario here, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm getting ready to like align out there. Like, I know it's going to take a while, right? But I'm getting ready to like put it out there a little bit. And then I'm like, no, it pops in my head like, okay, you cannot have something that you feel is empty and expect somebody else to come and fill that space. Ain't happening, sister. You know what I mean? So like, I'm thinking to myself, I really want a guy that maybe has a cabin somewhere. And then I was like, well, I don't want to buy a cabin, because then what if I meet a guy with a cabin? And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's like, no, you have to be fully you. You have to be fully you in order to attract somebody that's fully them. And then they're going to bring some melting stuff to put into your pot and stir it up,
Exactly. And it's just how they say, don't give from an empty cup. So yeah, it's about filling your cup up first, and then you want it to overflow, and then you're giving from the overflow. But what I realized when I was in the relationship, I was giving from, it wasn't empty, but like a half full cup. So I think it's so important to give all of that to yourself first, and then give from the overflow.
Yeah.
You don't want to empty your own cup for any.
Heck no. And I think a lot of us do that. I think a lot of us learn through going through the motions, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I love that. And another thing I wanted to say too, is that I see a lot when I work with clients, is that a lot of them are looking for exactly their exact self, right? Like, I want somebody to go to yoga with me and meditate this long with me and have smoothies with me, right? And they may think they want that. But in my experience, at least in my experience, it's really awesome to have somebody that can accept you for what you do and what you enjoy, and maybe be able to understand. Like, I would definitely be able to want somebody to understand frequency or something, so at least I could talk to them. But I don't think people really want that exact. I think it's so awesome if you have this person that is going to bring these other dynamics that you're like, well, I didn't think I liked that, but maybe I do,
Yeah, exactly. And you can learn from that. Do you know what I mean? And I think a lot, like us as women, sometimes we expect our men to be like women.
Yeah.
I was just having this conversation with my friend yesterday, actually. And, we were talking about the timing it takes for a man to respond to a message, for example. Like, we as women, we respond as soon as we see the message. We usually reply straight away if we're not busy, right?
Yeah.
A man, they'll respond when they have time usually, or they need to process. So they're very different. But like in relationship, we just expect them to answer straight away, because that's how our friends would, so we also have to understand that they're very different as well, and we can't expect them to be like our girlfriends do,
Yeah.
And if we want that, we can get that, we can still get that need met, but from our friends. If we want to do yoga together or something, it doesn't have to be your partner.
Yeah. I think that's a good point too, because back in the day, like when we were in high school and stuff, at least I remember I'd get a boyfriend and all my girlfriends would be invisible. It would just be me and my boyfriend. Then we'd break up and I'd be like, where's the girlfriends? It's so important to still be who you are, say who you are, don't just sacrifice into the relationship,
Exactly. That's one really good advice that my mum gave me as well. Like, don't give everything. Like, always keep some for yourself. Like my nana always said that to me as well. Like, because we can, when we're givers, you just want to give and give everything away, but you always have to keep that some for yourself as well. Give to you too. So, and not have those expectations. Like, for example, on Valentine's Day, which is coming up, you expect your partner to do things or buy you things. Well, why do you? Like, why can't you do that for yourself?
Yeah.
Give to yourself. Like, I know, like, obviously I'm single this year on Valentine's Day, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to give so much love to me. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I'm definitely going to treat myself and give that love to me, because I don't actually need somebody else to do that for me. If there was someone there that could do that, then that's amazing.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that, I feel like our conversation is helping frame this message, that your relationship gets to be just unique, right? Not following along what we were taught, all those things.
And I guess, if you want to go back to that as well, like, a lot of the things that we were taught are not necessarily like helpful in today's, and they're outdated as well, and I think, old school way of thinking, I feel, is like what I was saying before, that, to have a successful relationship, you have to be together, or, that's the only person you marry, or you have to be together for 20 plus years, which is great if you're happy. But I also have seen a lot of relationships that they hold that, oh, we've been together for 30 years, but they're not really happy and they're not communicating, and I don't see any love, but it's just that title of, oh, we've reached that 30-year or whatever the milestone is. But are you actually really happy? Are you growing together?
Yeah, that's true. It's just so many. It's the same reason people will just keep a job that they hate,
Yes.
Like, I've been at this job, I gotta wait 15 more years and I can retire, while you're dragging your ass to a place you hate,
Yeah. Yeah, I totally feel the same, especially with jobs as well. Like, for me, if I don't like something, or if it's not serving me, or if I don't see any benefit in it, or if I don't feel the energy, I'll leave, whether it be a job or a relationship or a friendship. If I see it's becoming toxic, I don't need to stay there. We don't need to stay anywhere. We're choosing to stay there. And I see so many people, like, so we're talking about jobs now, that they hate Mondays, they hate going to work, they hate their job, they're always complaining, but you have a choice. You don't need to stay there. And if you believe in the law of attraction and manifestation, you can attract something that you actually want if you really trust and believe that. And I'm example of that. I've been able to do that every time because I do have this deep trust in the universe.
And I'm sure you've grown a lot more by going to different places, having different relationships versus holding on to this one, and maybe that's even what creates karma. If we think about it, holding on to something that's no longer serving you, you could come back and do that again,
Yeah.
It's really all about finding, so it's self-love when it comes down to the very core.
It is 100%.
And trusting yourself is a key thing that keeps coming up for me right now. Trust yourself, and trust the universe. Like you said, to be supported. Because I used to be one of the people behind corporate America and hating it and dreading Mondays and having anxiety and insomnia. Oh my God. And I jumped and I never went back. So it's just a thought in your head. Yeah, it's scary, but you're just like, no, I'm doing this.
Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, I guess, when I look at my parents, like my dad would work like 12-hour days. So I always thought, oh, that's what I need to do. And I did that most of my life. I was really hardworking, working 2 jobs because I thought that's what you needed to do. And then I think when I turned 40, I was like, no, I was actually in a job that I disliked, and I saw myself doing that, coming home complaining. And I thought, no, I don't want to do this with anything in my life, jobs, relationships, or anything. So I'm going to leave. And yes, financially, it's totally different, but I'm the happiest I've ever been now because I listened to my intuition. Now I'm able to do things that I love and manifest other things. And there's so much abundance. I see so much more abundance in my life now.
Isn't that interesting, right? You got to let go.
It may not be financial, but abundance comes in so many ways. It's not always financial. And I think that's, abundance used to be related to finance, but it's not. It's everything in my life. So
yeah, when I left corporate America, I took a leave of absence, and I went from making a good salary to like really nothing, like really low, but it was the best transformation I had in my entire life. I would do it again, right? I would do it again, and I would have done it sooner, but it was the abundance of everything that happened to me after that, because I left the city and moved to Michigan, the country. Everything changed. Everything changed. And my life is richer because of it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Totally. I love it. Well, can people come find you? Can they follow you are you on social so they could see your influence?
Yeah, so on Instagram, it's Conversations with Alicia.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And then I've actually taken down the business page that I had on Facebook because I'm just updating that. So that's not there at the moment, but you can just find me by my name. So Alicia De Cruz.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, you keep being amazing.
Thank
You've
you.
got it going on. Like you're right there.
Thank you. What you
Oh,
do in me is already in you. So
I
thank
love it. Yeah. Thanks so much for being on here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.